Takeshi got the strongest magical abilities after he saved a magician girl from a group of evil wizards. He then joins a magic academy where he learns to control his magic and save the world from an organization of magical terrorists. Takeshi lives with his completely deranged and dysfunctional family, and he hates them so much that he goes to school every day, even during vacations. Luckily, his girlfriend Kurumi always joins him at school, where they are the members of the Sword Fight Club. On one regular day, just as Takeshi is about to enter his dojo, an injured girl falls out of the next room. Unable to resist helping her, he carries her to the infirmary. This is where things start to get strange. While Mui lies on the bed, she begins to desperately call out for her brother, mistaking Takeshi for him. But when she regains some consciousness and realizes her mistake, she reacts violently, pushing him away and drawing a magical weapon, ready to attack. Takeshi, who has already had quite an unusual day, tries to explain what's happening, but Mui faints again, this time falling on top of him, and in an accident that could have been pulled straight from one of those soap operas your mother watches from the couch, she accidentally kisses him. When she comes to, Mui becomes even more furious and shoots at him with her magical weapon, though fortunately she misses. Takeshi, showing himself to be a calm and patient sort, tries to soothe her, explaining that it was all just an accident. After a bit of chaos, they finally introduce themselves in a civilized manner, which sets the stage for the next phase of the story, where it seems they both confess to having had their first kiss. This is where Takeshi delves into the world of magic, a world he never imagined. When he asks about the strange smoke emanating from Mui, she becomes worried because somehow he can now perceive magic, something that shouldn't happen to an ordinary human. But before they can delve deeper into this, a black magical butterfly appears near them. Mui, showing her skill, destroys it with a shot, explaining that it's a tracker, and that they must escape as quickly as possible. And just as they prepare to leave, Suganashi appears, asking Mui to go with him. Mui, heartbroken, desperately tries to make her brother regain his memories and realize that they are on the same side, but three other individuals appear, ready to make life difficult for our duo. Despite all this being new and confusing for Takeshi, he decides to stand his ground. With his wooden sword, he shows that, although he isn't a trained magician, he has great skill in combat. He manages to defend himself quite well, even landing a blow on his opponent's chest, which enrages the enemy and leads to his sword being broken in two. Amidst the chaos, Takeshi discovers that he has a hidden power that allows him to anticipate his opponent's movements. With this newfound power, he disarms his opponent and creates an opportunity for him and Mui to escape. Meanwhile, Kazumi, Takeshi's friend, watches from a distance and decides to intervene. He approaches one of the girls from the enemy group to find out what's going on, but she becomes defensive, ready to confront him. Back with Takeshi and Mui, the girl apologizes for having dragged him into this magical mess, revealing that she has accidentally turned him into a magician. Through tears, Mui explains that she only wanted to get her brother back, but things have spiraled out of control in an unexpected way. At this point, Mui tells Takeshi about the Ghost Trailers, a magical organization that brainwashed her brother and is leading a revolutionary movement among magicians. She also reveals that she is a student at Subaru Magic Academy, where magicians are trained in the arcane arts. But before they can discuss more about this new and dangerous world, Kurumi, Takeshi's girlfriend, appears, furious that he skipped practice and is now with another girl. The situation becomes even more complicated when their pursuers reappear, ready to fight once again. Amidst the chaos, Takeshi discovers that his opponent possesses evasive magical abilities, allowing them to dodge attacks with ease. At the same time, Kazumi awakens his own magical powers, enveloping himself in flames that represent his newly discovered destructive magic. Meanwhile, Takeshi continues to dodge his opponent's attacks, using his ability to predict the enemy's movements until he finally decides it's time to end this. Takeshi calls out to Mui for assistance. While he distracts the opponent, Mui charges up a powerful magical attack. When the moment is perfect, she fires a blinding projectile of light, leaving the enemy vulnerable. Takeshi seizes the opportunity to deliver a final blow to the opponent's throat, taking them down once and for all. With the fight finally over, Mui decides that the best course of action is to take Takeshi and his friends to her own world, where they will be safer. Passing through a magical mirror, they all enter the world of magicians, a devastated and desolate place that starkly contrasts with the expectations they had. Upon arrival, they realize that things are far from easy in this new and dangerous world, and that their adventure is only just beginning. In a mysterious corner of the world, a grumpy and rather determined magician reveals his grand plan to erase humanity from the face of the earth and restore his magical world to its former glory, like a Zen garden restoration, but with less peace and more chaos. Meanwhile, our young protagonists find themselves in the infirmary of the Magic Academy after a series of events they would probably rather forget. Fortunately, their wounds are healed, and they are soon brought before headmistress Momoka, who welcomes them with a smile that likely conceals years of magical stress. In her Let Me Tell You a Story mode, Momoka explains the history of the magical world. It turns out there was a great war, similar to those in the galaxy far, far away, between the Ghost Trailer, a group of rebellious magicians led by Kazuma, a powerful guy with little love for humanity. Kazuma, with a total lack of chill, attempted to wipe out all humans using a super powerful spell, but 15 magicians with impressive abilities joined forces to stop him. The result? The world was split in two. One was destroyed, thanks Kazuma, and the other, where we are now, was saved. The magicians signed a pact, a sort of peace treaty, promising to fight only in the ruined world, with the winner of that battle gaining the right to rule the world of the living. Additionally, a super-wise magician known as the Wise Man invented a spell that forbade magicians from using their ancient, most dangerous magic in the human world. How considerate. And as for Kazuma, well, no one knows what happened to him after he cast his spell. Did he die? Is he in an eternal slumber? The mystery remains. After this history session, Momoka offers our young protagonists a choice. They can join her team, the Wizard Brace, which aims to maintain peace between magicians and humans, or they can renounce their magical powers and return to their normal lives, where their worries include homework and exams instead of deadly spells. After giving it some thought, they decide to stay at the academy, and Momoka enrolls them in the first year, starting in Class C, the lowest tier. This is where Mu comes in, a star magician from Class S, who is also demoted to Class C as punishment for getting into trouble while trying to rescue her brother on her own. Back at the academy, Mu shows the boys to their dormitories, while Kurumi, our girl with a serious case of jealousy, gets upset with the protagonist. Meanwhile, in the human world, Takeshi's mother is packing his things while his brother, Gyaku, complains about how selfish Takeshi is for transferring schools without telling anyone. His mother, ever practical, tells him to focus on his exams, as if exams were the most dangerous thing in his life. Back at the academy, the students attend their first magic class, where they are asked to demonstrate their powers and their aspect, those special objects that channel their magic. It is here that we discover that our protagonist, in a classic twist of course, doesn't have one. His magic is elusive, meaning he has yet to find his ideal aspect. The teacher, who clearly doesn't want any complications, tells Mui to take him to the shop to find one. On the way, Mui tells our protagonist about her family, a highly prestigious family of mages who take the concept of being pure-blooded very seriously. Upon arriving at the shop, they are greeted by Katu, an elderly man who runs the academy's armory and who, judging by his smile, probably has more secrets than weapons. While searching for an aspect that suits Takeshi's personality, who practices kendo, they come across a Japanese sword that turns out to be a relic, once belonging to one of the 15 mages who defeated Kazuma. This sword, called Twilight, is enchanted with a magic circle from its previous owner, making it a magical ticking time bomb, but also incredibly powerful if Takeshi can control it. But this is where things get interesting. Without any warning, Katu starts attacking Takeshi. Yes, the friendly old man from the shop suddenly goes mad and attacks him, forcing the poor boy to defend himself as best he can. During the fight, the sword begins to absorb Takeshi's energy and emits a purple aura. Surprise, the sword is also a gun. After an intense battle, Takeshi manages to master Twilight, which according to Katu, means he now has access to the sword's ultimate power, and if used correctly, it can unleash an incredible force. Katu also mentions that the sword can use special bullets that absorb other mages' magic or can be used in combat, giving Takeshi an advantage in battle. In the end, we discover that Twilight's former owner gave up magic to live as an ordinary human, and it was she who named the sword. After this intense trial, Takeshi returns to class with Mui, more powerful and ready for whatever comes next. Meanwhile, elsewhere, we see a mysterious man pick up a woman in his car. She claims to have killed several members of Wizard Brace in a recent battle, and then both disappear in a flash of teleportation, making it clear that the sleeping prince awaits them. Later on, our protagonists get serious and decide to train as if there's no tomorrow. They start practicing magic with all their energy, taking extra classes every day after the academy. They want to master their powers as quickly as possible and spare no effort. Meanwhile, Mui and Isoshima have a conversation in the locker room. Mui, with her usual smile, invites Isoshima to join her in visiting a famous fortune teller in this magical world, as she has 2 tickets. At first, Isoshima refuses because she feels jealous of Mui, but her curiosity gets the better of her when Mui mentions that the fortune teller could predict her love life. And of course, who can resist knowing if love is about to knock on their door? After this chat, the girls head to their gym class. On the way out, there's a noticeable tension in the air, and it's not due to the stretches. Mui seems to be developing feelings for the protagonist, which only adds to the drama. They then run into Takeshi and Kazumi, and they chat about everything that's been happening. But the peace doesn't last long as two students walk by and upon seeing Mui, mutter insults about her brother, calling him a traitor. This leaves Mui devastated and wanting to disappear. As if the drama wasn't enough, their teacher Muji shows up to give them a lesson on how communities work in this world. Here we learn that there are 50 communities, 7 of which are the largest and most important, including Wizard Brace. Muji explains that each community has its own ideology and way of seeing things, meaning not all of them hate the ghost trailer with the same intensity. Unfortunately for Mui, many students see her brother as a traitor, which is why they treat her poorly. This brings back bitter memories for the protagonist of when his brother Gekku also called him a traitor, making him perfectly understand how Mui feels. Later on, when returning to class, Takeshi enters a room and finds a group of boys looking at photos they took of Isoshima. Furious, he scolds them and declares that he is her boyfriend. This confession is overheard by Mui, who was entering the room at that moment. Mui, surprised and somewhat hurt, apologizes to Takeshi for not knowing that he and Isoshima were a couple and runs off clearly upset. After this, Mui avoids Takeshi during the next class, while Isoshima watches everything from a distance with mixed feelings. We then reach the key moment with the fortune teller. Isoshima receives bad news. The fortune teller tells her that Takeshi might be interested in another girl. This leaves Isoshima furious and worried. During Mu's confession with the fortune teller, she reveals that she and Takeshi accidentally kissed in the infirmary, which only adds fuel to the fire. Desperate, Isoshima rushes to find Takeshi and upon finding him, tries to kiss him, but he stops her. After hearing her complaints, Takeshi asks her to stop pretending that they are a couple, which breaks Isoshima's heart. After this bitter conversation, Isoshima decides to completely ignore Takeshi, skipping practice for 3 days. Mui, concerned, approaches Takeshi to ask about it, feeling guilty. However, Takeshi tells her not to worry. Meanwhile, Isoshima watches them from afar, unsure of what to do. Later on, Isoshima and Mui take a bath together, where Isoshima tries to find out if Mui is genuinely interested in Takeshi. Not getting the answer she was hoping for, she leaves, visibly frustrated. As she walks down the hallway, Isoshima is approached by a young man who asks her out. Still clinging to the idea that she is still Takeshi's girlfriend, she rejects him. However, the young man lets her know that he is aware that she and Takeshi are no longer a couple, which prompts him to try again. Isoshima rejects him once more, but the young man, desperate, grabs her by the shoulder, triggering a past trauma in Isoshima, who collapses to the floor in shock. Fortunately, Takeshi arrives just in time to scare the boy away and comfort Isoshima. This is when we discover the best-kept secret. Takeshi and Isoshima have been pretending to be a couple for a long time. It turns out that Isoshima, being a very attractive girl, used to have problems with stalkers, so Takeshi offered to pretend to be her boyfriend to keep the boys at bay. The deal was that they would stop pretending if either of them fell in love with someone else. At that moment, Takeshi reassures Isoshima that he never wanted her to ignore him, and that he always cared about her. Relieved, Isoshima confesses that she thought he found her unpleasant, which Takeshi strongly denies. Meanwhile, Gekku and his mother are having dinner and talking about Takeshi. In an unexpected moment of introspection, Gekku mentions that it might be time to reconcile with his brother. This is where we learn the root of Gekku's hatred. He was also in love with Isoshima. And when he found out that Takeshi was pretending to be her boyfriend, he was filled with rage. This led him to have a car accident that left a deep mark on him. Although it's unclear whether Takeshi was aware of his brother's feelings, it's evident that Gekku harbors a lot of resentment. Finally, we see Takeshi and Isoshima reconciled, ready to continue their charade of being a couple, while Mui watches them from afar, holding her ticket to the fortune teller. Isoshima, on the other hand, is still doubtful and wonders if Mui might have asked Takeshi to get back together with her or something similar. The big question remains, who is Takeshi really in love with? Later on, we see Mui slipping through the shadows of her ruined world, cautiously advancing until she reaches the presence of the fortune teller. This enigmatic figure, with a malevolent expression and eyes full of mystery, coldly responds to Mui's questions. With a heavy heart, Mui begs her to reveal the whereabouts of her lost brother, and the fortune teller, with a sinister smile, shows her the path she must follow. The next day, amidst intense training, Kazumi struggles to master an advanced technique, infusing her magic into a bullet to assist Takeshi, our protagonist. However, the task seems almost impossible. Her control over her powers is still insufficient. Takeshi, recognizing his own limitations, remarks that he too has not yet fully mastered his abilities. He knows he must train harder to effectively use the special cartridge in his sword, a power that could be crucial in the upcoming battle. Suddenly, Isoshima bursts onto the scene, running with a face pale with worry. Upon reaching the boys, she informs them of the terrifying news. Mui has disappeared. On her desk, Isoshima found a strange map with several locations crossed out. Upon hearing this, Takeshi doesn't hesitate to notify the teacher, hoping for a solution. However, discovering that the teacher can't do much about it, he ignores all warnings and decides to take matters into his own hands. All of his friends initially advise him not to act so recklessly. They end up joining him, ready for whatever may come. The group sneaks past the academy's guards and, with determination, travels through a portal that takes them to the ruined world. Upon arrival, they are greeted by an enigmatic figure, a mysterious witch who sits calmly on a log, watching them with inquisitive eyes. She asks about their intentions in that desolate place. The youths explain they are searching for their friend, but the witch, in a cold voice, tells them she hasn't seen her and cannot allow them to proceed. Without warning, a black cloud appears in the sky and launches a dark substance onto the group. Fortunately, they are protected by a magical barrier that repels the attack. Shortly afterwards, we learn that this witch is the guardian of the portal, and that there are others like her, tasked with protecting the passages that connect the world of the living with the ruined world. Suddenly, the dark mass that had collided with the barrier transforms into a human figure. Before the boys can process what's happening, the figure is incinerated by another wizard who appears out of nowhere, leaving the group utterly bewildered. Without thinking twice, Takeshi decides to follow the new attacker, abandoning the safety of the barrier along with his friends. Elsewhere nearby, Mui is face to face with her brother, desperately trying to make him remember her, fighting against the bitter reality that his mind has been manipulated and his memories erased. At that moment, Mui discovers that the fortune teller had betrayed her, setting her up in a trap. Despite her efforts, her brother remains unyielding and with cold detachment begins to strangle her until she loses consciousness. Just then, Takeshi and the others arrive at the scene, horrified at what they see happening. Enraged, Takeshi charges at Mui's brother, demanding to know why he is acting that way. However, his attack is easily blocked and the enemy uses his ice magic to knock Takeshi down effortlessly. Mui's brother, showing relentless cruelty, decides to finish off Takeshi by trapping him in a prison of ice. As Takeshi is about to be captured, Kazumi, in an act of heroism, throws himself over Takeshi, sacrificing himself to save him. Shaken but determined, Takeshi gets up and runs towards Mui, ready to protect her at all costs while dodging his opponent's magical attacks. Meanwhile, Kazumi starts to run out of oxygen inside the ice prison, putting Takeshi in a desperate situation. He knows he doesn't have the skill to face his powerful adversary. Mui's brother unleashes his magic once again, determined to end Takeshi. But our protagonist, using his wit and bravery, employs his vision powers to foresee the projectiles and redirects them towards the ice prison, managing to free Kazumi in the process. Takeshi emerges unscathed from the attack, and the group regroups for one last attempt at victory. Takeshi asks his companion to heal Mui and suggests to Kazumi that they use the magic bullet they have been trying to prepare while he distracts the enemy. The battle intensifies. Takeshi dodges the icy attacks and counterattacks whenever he finds an opening, but he lacks the skill to maintain protective spells and takes a devastating hit. However, the girls, now with Mui recovered, join Takeshi to help him withstand the enemy's final assault. Meanwhile, Kazumi channels all of his energy to load the magic bullet. Once the gun's cartridge is ready, Takeshi inserts the projectile and both he and his weapon are engulfed in flames. When the witch's barrier breaks, Takeshi unleashes a powerful wave of fire towards his opponent, striking him directly and causing him to fall to the ground defeated. Mui tries to run to her brother, but Takeshi stops her, warning her that the fight isn't over yet. Out of nowhere, Kippy, a member of the ghost trailer, appears and, upon noticing the presence of other mages, decides to take Mui's brother away. Later, back at the academy, the youngsters are severely reprimanded by the headmistress, who has just returned wounded from a battle. During the scolding, the headmistress demands that they promise never to leave the academy in such a manner again. However, Takeshi refuses, explaining that he knows Mui will continue trying to rescue her brother and that he can't leave her alone on that mission, surprising the headmistress with his firmness and determination. Ultimately, she decides to give him a chance to prove his worth. Elsewhere, we see a man resting while, around him, Kippy and the fortune teller discuss what happened. They regret that the mission to capture Mui failed, all because a bearer of the Twilight Sword intervened at the crucial moment. At that instant, we discover the fortune teller's true identity. It's Violet, a teacher at the Subaru Academy, who has been working in the shadows to uncover the identity of the young man who wields the powerful sword. As time passed, a mysterious building appeared next to the academy, conjured by illusory magic. This building is no ordinary place. It is a testing ground designed to challenge the students, forcing them to use all their knowledge and skills to overcome colossal obstacles. Here, the headmistress offers Takeshi and his friends a unique opportunity to rescue Mui's brother. However, for this to be possible, they must first successfully complete the challenges of the training ground. The first challenge that Takeshi faces is a test of evasive magic. His mission is to traverse a city full of dangers and reach a church on the other side. But the path is infested with robotic creatures that mercilessly shoot at anything that moves. With determination, Takeshi moves forward, dodging attacks and fighting against the enemies. During his journey, he unexpectedly encounters Takao, a user of evasive magic with whom he had previously fought. Instinctively, Takeshi prepares for combat, but as he approaches, he realizes that Takao doesn't recognize him and ignores him completely. Confused but with no time to waste, Takeshi continues his mission. Meanwhile, elsewhere, the teacher and the headmistress carefully watch Takeshi's movements. It is at this moment that a dark secret is revealed. After having captured Takao in a previous battle, they rewrote his memory, making him believe he is just another student at the academy. This is why Takao doesn't remember Takeshi. As the test progresses, each team member faces challenges specifically designed according to their type of magic, forcing them to push beyond their limits. Outside the building, Violet's shadow looms over the students. Accompanied by her mages, she decides to intervene, using her dark magic to disintegrate the illusions surrounding the city. Suddenly, all the students fall to the lower floor, where a gigantic golem is conjured right next to Kurumi. Desperate, Kurumi tries to defend herself, but the beast is too strong. Fortunately, Takao appears at the last moment, saving her from being crushed. The confusion on Kurumi's face reflects the same surprise that Takeshi felt upon encountering Takao, but they don't have time to exchange words. In a tragic turn, Takao is eliminated from the test due to an injury caused by the golem. Reunited once again, the group analyzes the situation and decides to press on, venturing deeper into the labyrinth of the floor where they now find themselves. After advancing a bit, they are confronted by a giant golem that descends from the sky, blocking their path. Although they initially believe they can easily defeat it, they soon discover that the monster is strengthened by a dark magic, rendering their attacks useless. In a final effort, they decide to use a magic bullet charged by Kazumi. While the brute distracts the golem, Takeshi prepares to launch a devastating attack. He finally manages to charge his weapon and unleashes a fiery slash that cuts the golem in half. The defeated creature transforms into a magic card that returns to the hands of its conjurer, Violet. Realizing the immense power of Twilight, Violet decides that she must reclaim it, hinting that she was the original owner of the sword. After the intense battle, the headmistress is tended to by the nurse, with whom she chats about what happened. Despite the difficulties, Takeshi and his team manage to complete all the challenges and reach the goal. Later, during classes, a small argument breaks out between Kurumi and Takeshi. Kurumi insists that Takeshi should go home for New Year's to see his brother Giko, but Takeshi refuses outright. His family is a sensitive subject and he is not willing to return to the real world. At home, Kurumi receives an unexpected visit from Giko, Takeshi's brother. During their meeting, Giko suggests that Kurumi visit a temple and buy amulets. The conversation reveals that Kurumi and Takeshi are still pretending to be boyfriend and girlfriend, but Giko assures her that it will no longer be necessary since he will soon be joining them at the academy. We then discover that Kippi and Sugi are the ones responsible for bringing Giko there, suggesting that they are secretly plotting something. Meanwhile, Takeshi trains intensely alongside Mui. After an exhausting practice session, Mui starts behaving strangely, acting unusually affectionate towards Takeshi. Noticing she has a fever, Takeshi decides to take her to her dorm room to rest. As soon as he leaves, Violet seizes the opportunity to sneak in and take a strand of Takeshi's hair, intending to analyze it and gather more information about how he acquired the Twilight Sword. In the dorm room, Mu becomes even more affectionate, forcing Takeshi to get into bed with her, a situation any boy might envy. However, Takeshi, feeling uncomfortable and aware of the possible repercussions, tries to sneak away. Just then, Kurumi arrives and, misunderstanding the scene, furiously pulls Takeshi out of the room. Mui, confused and not understanding what's happening, only adds to Kurumi's frustration, who ends up bursting into tears. In the midst of her distress, Kurumi's bodily magic manifests, transforming her into a baby while she continues to cry. Worried, Mui seeks out Takeshi and explains the situation to him. However, Takeshi, visibly tired of the tensions, makes it clear that he doesn't care what happens to Kurumi. He finally confesses to Mui the truth about their fake relationship and suggests they stop pretending, as it's time for Kurumi to learn to deal with her problems on her own. As the months pass, the relationship between Takeshi and Kurumi remains tense, a constant shadow that threatens to destabilize the group. After several weeks of careful planning, the Academy finally unveiled its bold strategy to rescue Mui's brother, Suganashi. This risky plan, set to take place in 2 months, would involve Takeshi and his friends in a mission that would test not only their magic, but also their courage and determination. The day of the operation arrived, and the group gathered in the imposing office of the headmistress. With a serious expression, the headmistress handed Mui a special magic bullet designed to suppress her brother's magical powers without harming him. This bullet would be crucial in capturing him and bringing him back safely. With a solemn gesture, the headmistress used her dark magic to create an interdimensional door, marking the official start of the rescue mission. The team, along with the hostages Takao and Hotaru, passed through the portal, transporting to an unknown location. The two hostages, captured some time ago, were under strict surveillance and deprived of their uniforms, a clear sign of the mistrust towards them. Upon arrival, they were met by a dark car from which Kippy and Sugi, enigmatic figures who seemed aware of every detail of the plan, stepped out. The Academy's objective was then revealed, a hostage exchange, in which Takao and Hotaru would be handed over in exchange for Mui's brother. This turn of events left Mui in a state of panic, unable to grasp the complexity of the situation. Meanwhile, Takao, fully aware of his role, showed no resistance. Taking advantage of a moment of calm before the exchange, Kurumi approached Takao to thank him for saving her on a previous occasion. With a serious look, Takao advised her to become stronger so she wouldn't have to cry alone again, and as a final gesture, he handed her a mysterious artifact that could be of great help to her in the future. With the exchange complete, Takao and Hotaru got into Kippy's car, while Suganashi prepared for a battle with Takeshi's group. Meanwhile, the headmistress and Kippy vanished into a portal, leaving Takeshi and his team to face Suganashi. They knew it wouldn't be an easy fight, so they prepared with a series of protective and power-enhancing spells. The battle was brutal from the start, with the group's nurse showcasing her skill by countering the opponent's magical attacks. Two of the guards summoned a gigantic magic key, creating a massive void beneath Suganashi's feet, forcing him to run through the city while the group pursued him relentlessly. While Takeshi and his team fought, the headmistress engaged in a parallel battle with Kippy. Through a tense conversation, it was revealed that they had once been comrades, but time had turned them into enemies. Momoka, the headmistress, confessed that beyond the exchange, her true intention was to avenge the death of a comrade, an event she suspected was connected to Kippy. Although Kippy denied any involvement, the tension quickly escalated into a violent confrontation. Momoka attacked with ferocity, using her dark magic combined with portals to trap Kippy in a void prison, where she bombarded him with devastating magical projectiles. Despite severe injuries, Kippy emerged from the onslaught, determined to continue the fight. As his body rapidly deteriorated due to Momoka's spell, Kippy questioned her true intentions, revealing a dark omen. Kazuma, the sorcerer who once destroyed the world, was about to awaken, and with him, the truth about Momoka would come to light. With time running out, Momoka resorted to a desperate measure, creating a portal to space to banish Kippy. However, Kippy, using all his remaining magic, resisted. Meanwhile, Momoka's body continued to disintegrate. In an unexpected turn of events, one of the nearby cars was sucked into the portal, taking Kippy with it and leaving Momoka injured and on the brink of death in the ocean. Back with Takeshi and his team, their pursuit of Suganashi led them to an ice castle, a majestic structure created by their enemy. They decided to use Kazumi's fire to destroy the roof and enter, but the castle was filled with deadly traps. As they attempted to destroy the roof with a magic bullet, a lapse in Kazumi's concentration caused Takeshi's sword to explode, sending him flying. Mui, with her brother in mind, tried to weaken the structure of the roof, which made Takeshi intensely worried about her safety. Reflecting on the similarities between his situation with his brother Jiko and Mui's with Suganashi, Takeshi found new determination. He asked Kazumi to free him from his ice prison with a more powerful attack. Although hesitant, Kazumi complied, unleashing a great blaze upon Takeshi, who prepared for the final confrontation. Mui, facing her brother, tried to reach him with words of love, attempting to awaken his memories. But Suganashi, trapped in his own torment, reacted violently, knocking Mui down and preparing to destroy her. At the last moment, Takeshi and Kazumi arrived to the rescue, engulfed in a pillar of fire. They tried once more to reason with Suganashi, expressing their desire to see him happy. Mui's tears finally broke through her brother's barriers as he began to remember his life with her, leading him into a state of emotional agony. The group, aware that there was no other option, prepared to use the magic bullet. Just as Suganashi charged at them uncontrollably, Mui shot her brother, landing a direct hit that neutralized him. Later, it was revealed that Momoka had survived her battle with Kippy and was being tended to by the nurse. Finally, Mui reunited with her brother, who awoke in a state of peace. Through tears, Mui embraced him tightly, begging him never to leave her again. Meanwhile, Kippy had also survived, reuniting with his henchmen to continue his dark plan. In a moment of mockery, Ballet, one of the leaders, taunted Kippy for losing Suganashi and, without mercy, killed two of the men accompanying a woman, revealing that they no longer needed Kippy, as they had found a perfect replacement. The final scene showed the appearance of Giko, Takeshi's brother, suggesting that the pieces in this game of power and magic were still far from finding their final place. Sometime after the recent events, our protagonist finds himself awakening in an environment that defies reality itself. He is floating above an ocean of intense red, a surreal vision that seems ripped straight from a nightmare. As he struggles to comprehend his surroundings, he witnesses Isoshima being caught and devoured by a monstrous creature, grotesque and beyond comprehension. Just as the terror seems to reach him, Takeshi abruptly wakes up in his room, sweating and with his heart pounding. The room is dimly lit, and although he tries to fall back asleep, he can't shake the feeling that something darker is at play. The twilight, his sword, seems to be absorbing some of his life energy, and to add more mystery, an unknown female figure appears beside him, watching him with a disturbing intensity as he sleeps. At dawn, Takeshi and his friends resume their usual training, but this time with an unexpected ally, Mui's brother, an exceptionally skilled mage who offers to guide the group in their efforts to improve. Under his supervision, the youths push themselves harder than ever, learning new techniques and strengthening their abilities. After an exhausting session, Takeshi and Mui share a moment of intimacy, where she, visibly shy, gives him a Valentine's gift. Takeshi, surprised but pleased, accepts the gift with a genuine smile. Shortly after, Suganashi also presents him with a gift, revealing an unexpectedly kind side of his personality. This gesture gives us a glimpse of Takeshi's charismatic nature, which seems to win affection at every turn. The situation becomes even more intriguing when it's revealed that Mui and Kurumi had prepared both gifts together, adding a layer of complicity to the scene. Amidst this atmosphere of camaraderie, Takeshi is once again haunted by the memory of his nightmare, but decides not to dwell on it, focusing on the trivialities of daily life. However, that same night, he falls victim to another disturbing dream, this time featuring Mui, who falls into a void while chasing after a pudding. The anguish wakes him once more, drenched in cold sweat. Trying to shake off the sense of impending doom, he steps into the hallway for some fresh air and encounters Tetsunoshi, who, noticing the distress on his face, recommends that he visit Nurse Hyudu, suggesting that the nightmares might be the result of magic. The following day, reality begins to eerily align with Takeshi's dreams. Mui suffers an accident, tripping while running after a pudding and injuring her leg, a coincidence too close to the young man's dream. His alarm escalates when, for no apparent reason, he suddenly collapses unconscious. When he regains consciousness, he finds himself in the infirmary under Hyudu's care, who diagnoses him with simple fatigue due to lack of sleep. However, the concern lingers, and the nurse insists that he rest, ordering him not to leave the bed for the rest of the day. During his rest, Takeshi is assaulted by another nightmare. This time, he glimpses Kippy in the company of the enigmatic girl who had appeared beside his bed. The situation turns critical when the nurse, alerted by the young man's groans, finds him in a state of deep distress, with his magic being drained by the manifestation of Twilight. Disappearing as mysteriously as she had appeared, the figure vanishes before Hyudu can intervene. The gravity of the situation becomes clear when the nurse explains that his nightmares are, in fact, visions of the future caused by magic, and that Twilight, in its human form, is draining his energy to survive. The warning is stark. If he continues to let the sword exhaust him, his life could be in danger. Instead of heeding the warnings, Takeshi, with reckless determination, decides to continue using the sword to explore his visions, convinced that he can use them to foresee the future. Upon learning of his decision, Momoka, the headmistress, warns him that if he continues down that path, she will personally ensure that Twilight is taken from him. However, when Takeshi reveals his intent to defeat the sword's manifestation within his dreams, Momoka shifts her approach and offers him an alternative: to confront Twilight's human form in a battle within his dreams to end the energy drain. The headmistress, along with the nurse, proceed to induce him into a deep sleep and protect his body with a magical aura while he faces the danger in the dream world. In this surreal world, Mui, in an act of bravery, joins Takeshi to face Twilight together. However, the battle quickly turns against them. Twilight's ability to absorb all the magic around her gives her a devastating advantage. Despite her best efforts, Mui falls victim to a precise strike that incapacitates her, draining her energy to the limit. Takeshi, weakened and on the verge of defeat, contemplates surrendering. But in that moment of despair, he recalls Momoka's words about the relationship between an aspect and its wielder, leading him to reflect on his own connection with Twilight. In an unexpected twist, Takeshi apologizes to Twilight, acknowledging his failure in not giving her what she desired most, a name. Although Twilight's manifestation initially seems resistant to any display of emotion, it's evident that Takeshi's gesture deeply affects her. In an act of recognition and respect, he decides to name her Tawa. This act of compassion and understanding has an immediate impact on Twilight, who abandons her aggressive form, reverting back to being a sword, but this time with a stronger bond with her wielder. In the real world, Geku, unaware of the events in Takeshi's dreams, informs his mother that he has been accepted into the school he so longed to attend, the same school where his brother and the girl he fancies are. A month after the confrontation with Tawa, Takeshi, having found a new way to coexist with his sword, accompanies Kurumi to the special place they had always wanted to visit, where they finally buy the sweets they had been craving. During their conversation, it is revealed that although Takeshi is still occasionally haunted by nightmares, he has achieved a kind of peace with Tawa, transforming a relationship of conflict into one of mutual understanding. As time passed, Takeshi and his friends advanced to their second year at the academy, which was busy preparing to welcome the new students. In this context, Takeshi and Kurumi were assigned to the welcome group responsible for guiding the newcomers as they began their journey at the academy. Among these new students was Futaba, Kazumi's younger sister. Futaba had acquired her magical powers accidentally due to an incident caused by Kazumi during an argument in which she intentionally burned a lock of her sister's hair, triggering her latent powers. The young Futaba introduced herself with a grace and charm that immediately enchanted Takeshi and Kurumi, who couldn't help but feel an instant connection with her. After the introduction, Futaba withdrew with her brother, and Takeshi continued with his responsibilities, but his mind remained somewhat distracted by the recent interaction. Shortly after, Giko appeared suddenly, greeting Takeshi and Kurumi with a smile, revealing that he would also be studying at the academy that year. Takeshi was visibly surprised and couldn't help but ask his brother how he had acquired his magical powers. However, Giko merely dodged the question, avoiding going into details before departing. This encounter left Takeshi with a lingering sense of unease that persisted in the days that followed, during which he heard nothing from his brother until they eventually ran into each other by chance in the academy's hot springs. Giko, in a friendly tone, called out to Takeshi to join him. And although the protagonist agreed, the atmosphere between the two brothers remained awkwardly silent. However, just as Takeshi turned to look at him, a disturbing vision overwhelmed him, filling him with fear. Despite the unease it caused, he chose to ignore the vision and focus on the moment of connection he was experiencing with Giko. Over time, Takeshi and Giko began to rebuild their lost relationship, training together and establishing new bonds that showed the grudges of the past were being overcome. One day, after an intense training session, Takeshi headed to the dining hall to have lunch with his friends. As they enjoyed their meal and conversation, Professor Makoto approached Takeshi, requesting a private chat. During their conversation, Makoto expressed his concerns about Giko, mentioning that his way of thinking seemed to be at odds with Takeshi's. The professor suggested that, as his older brother, Takeshi should try to guide him and set a good example. As Makoto spoke, Takeshi realized that the professor was using a visual technique, but before he could inquire about it, Makoto withdrew, leaving him feeling puzzled. That night, the nightmares that had been tormenting Takeshi intensified. In his dreams, he saw disturbing images of his friends and family, but the most unsettling were those of his brother Giko alongside Tawa. In these visions, Giko accused Takeshi of not apologizing to him and demanded compensation, threatening to take away everything Takeshi had, including Kurumi and Tawa. Upon waking, drenched in sweat and terrified, Takeshi realized he wasn't alone. From the window, Kippi was silently watching him. The presence of the elderly mage triggered a defensive instinct in Takeshi, who grabbed his sword and prepared to fight. However, Kippi made it clear that he had no intention of fighting. Rather, he wished to speak with Takeshi about something of utmost importance. In a deep and serious voice, Kippi began to recount the true story of Wizard Brace, an organization that had dominated magic in the world centuries ago. According to Kippi, Wizard Brace had conspired to coldly eliminate all mages who did not belong to their guild under the pretense that magic was a divine gift reserved only for a select elite. Kippi's story continued, revealing that Kazuma, known as the World's Destroyer, had been his classmate at the academy. Kazuma was a mage of immense talent, so impressive that Wizard Brace attempted to recruit him. However, Kazuma's ideals clashed head-on with those of the organization, and he refused to join them, preferring to use magic according to his own will. Kazuma's refusal led Wizard Brace to take drastic measures, kidnapping the young man's parents to blackmail him. This mistake resulted in a tragedy, as Kazuma, in a fit of rage and desperation, conjured a powerful spell that eliminated the Wizard Brace representative, although he was unable to save his parents, who were murdered shortly after. From that point on, Kazuma founded the Ghost Trailer, a group that fiercely opposed Wizard Brace, gathering powerful mages who had suffered under the organization's yoke. Takeshi, impressed by the revelations, couldn't help but wonder why it had always been said that Kazuma was a mage killer. Kippi explained that, indeed, Kazuma had killed many mages, but only those who were truly evil and had caused suffering over the centuries. According to Kippi, Kazuma was merely seeking to put an end to wickedness in the world. Kippi's account became even more personal when he mentioned the last great magical war, where Kazuma led the Ghost Trailer in an epic battle. At the climax of the war, Kazuma faced Yuko, Takeshi's mother, who was the original bearer of Tawa. Kippei revealed that during that confrontation, Kazuma launched a powerful orb of darkness at Yuko, but his attack was intercepted by Tsukiyomi, a former comrade of Kazuma who betrayed him after falling in love with Yuko. This betrayal was devastating for Kazuma, who lost not only the battle, but also his closest friend. Kippei also confessed that Yuko had been his magic teacher and one of the 15 great mages who had saved the world in the past. Overwhelmed by the sheer amount of information, Takeshi demanded to know why Kippei was telling him all this now. Kippei bluntly admitted that he was trying to recruit Takeshi for the Ghost Trailer, but the young mage flatly refused to join them. Kippei, however, did not give up and asked him to at least hand over Tawa as a gesture of respect for the love Tsukiyomi had felt for Yuko. When Takeshi refused again, Kippei approached him in an intimidating manner, forcing him to choose between joining Wizard Brace or the Ghost Trailer. However, Takeshi backed away, unable to make a decision at that moment. Before leaving, Kippei suggested to Takeshi that he speak with Momoka to find out the truth, stating that her visual technique would allow him to discover what had really happened. After Kippei's departure, Takeshi found himself back in his bed, as if everything that had happened had been a dream. However, his special vision was still active, confirming that what he had experienced was real. The following day, Takeshi went to see the headmistress, determined to get answers about his mother. The headmistress confirmed that Yuko had been a mage of Wizard Brace and that everything Kippei had told him about Kazuma's parents' fate was true. This revelation left Takeshi in shock, unable to fully process what he had just discovered. Meanwhile, the headmistress, though concerned, reflected on how each person must choose their own path and make their own decisions, regardless of the way of the past. Elsewhere in the academy, Kazuma was in a deep sleep, closely watched by Kippei. The great mage briefly awoke, only to shed a few tears before falling back into his slumber. Kippei, filled with emotion, informed Violet that Kazuma's awakening was near, but they still needed to give him more time to be fully prepared. After several months of tension and anticipation, the long-awaited moment finally arrives. Kazuma's ultimate awakening. In an atmosphere charged with tension and reverence, all his subordinates are gathered around him, their gazes filled with anxiety as they fervently await the return of their powerful leader after so many years. As the predicted hour approaches, the atmosphere becomes almost palpable, laden with a mix of nervousness and anticipation. Finally, as the last grains of sand in the hourglass fall, Kazuma, who had been in a deep slumber for 17 long years, awakens with an imposing aura, provoking an instant reaction from his followers, who cannot contain their excitement and eagerly ask what the next move in their relentless struggle will be. With a calmness that only heightens the tension in the air, Kazuma tells them that they already know exactly what they must do, thus beginning the Second Great Magical War, an event that will mark a new era of chaos and destruction. Later, during the end of an ordinary class, Takeshi feels a shiver run down his spine, as if an ominous presence is near. His intuition screams at him that something terrible is about to happen, and without hesitation, he orders everyone to duck immediately. Barely seconds later, the sound of windows shattering fills the air and a deafening roar echoes as a gigantic red dragon, the same one that had appeared in Takeshi's unsettling visions, emerges on the scene. The dragon's flames light up the sky as the terrified students flee the classroom in a desperate attempt to escape being burned alive. Chaos reigns in the corridors of the academy as Takeshi and the others realize the devastating truth: the academy is under attack. A battalion of enemy mages has infiltrated the premises, causing massive destruction and leaving a trail of death, with multiple students fallen in the brutal ambush. Amid the chaos, Kazumi, who had gone out in search of his sister, is caught off guard by an explosion that knocks him down, leaving him unconscious. Meanwhile, our protagonist runs with a racing heart, desperately searching for his brother, while Mui, in parallel, struggles to locate Suganashi. The corridors become improvised battlefields, and in a heart-wrenching scene, Professor Makoto, a veteran of many wars, runs through the hallways when he is suddenly pierced by the deadly blade of a sword. As he turns, he sees his attacker, Gecko, finally revealing the suspicion the professor had harbored for so long. With no time to process the betrayal, the professor's life quickly slips away. Simultaneously, Mui finds herself trapped in an ambush. A group of mages blocks her path and the young woman prepares to fight, though she soon finds herself surrounded by more enemies, leaving her in a disadvantageous position. The first attacks are directed at her, but with skill, Mui defends herself by creating a magical shield. However, one of the mages, more cunning, approaches her stealthily with a sword in hand, leaping towards her with the intention of delivering the final blow. In that crucial moment, Mui's brother appears like lightning, without a second's hesitation, saving his sister and eliminating the enemies with lethal precision. In another corner of the academy, Momoka, the headmistress, is attacked by 3 mages sent specifically to neutralize her power. The headmistress, known for her cunning, immediately identifies them. They belong to the Pendragon community, one of the 7 great magical organizations now allied with Ghost Trailer. Wasting no time, Momoka unsheaths her daggers, preparing for the confrontation. One of the mages uses a special weapon and mentions Zero Pressure, an attack that creates a sort of magical box covering the entire room, designed to suppress the headmistress's dark magic. Another mage, seizing the opportunity, uses his sword to generate a vacuum within the box, attempting to suffocate her. But Momoka, always one step ahead, utilizes a small portal strategically placed behind the group, managing to survive the deadly attack. In a fierce counterattack, Momoka creates a black hole in front of her adversaries, sucking them into a void with no return. Then, in an unexpected twist, Violet appears in the sky, scolding the headmistress for eliminating her students and revealing, to everyone's surprise, that she was the infiltrator in Ghost Trailer. With an air of superiority, Violet invokes a magic card, unleashing a Valkyrie, who launches a ferocious attack on the headmistress. While Momoka struggles to defend herself, Violet takes advantage of the distraction to summon the fearsome dragon, ordering it to attack the weakened headmistress. After vanquishing the Valkyrie, the beast uses its tail with devastating force, delivering a brutal blow that leaves Momoka unconscious, marking a victory for Ghost Trailer. Amidst the devastation, Mui and her brother manage to find Kazumi, quickly taking him to the infirmary, where a concerned nurse tends to him. Meanwhile, Takeshi and Kurumi continue their desperate search through the corridors for Gecko. After a period of tension and anguish, they finally encounter him. Gecko, upon seeing them, tries to maintain his facade, pretending not to be involved in the attack. But Takeshi's special vision allows him to see through the lie, confronting Gecko and demanding to know his true intentions. It is then that Gecko, dropping his mask, reveals the deep contempt he feels for his brother, admitting that he's part of Ghost Trailer and that it was Kippy who turned him into a mage. After this revelation, Gecko disappears, only to reappear behind Takeshi using a skill called Angel Hunt, attempting to kill him in a surprise attack. Fortunately, Takeshi manages to block the attack at the last second and counter it. Although Gecko's speed and skill surpass him, leaving him exposed to a fierce beating, while Kurumi, powerless, begs Gecko to stop. Gecko's attack becomes even more ruthless as he expresses that his powers are a sign from God, justifying his actions as divine retribution for the car accident that left him immobile, blaming Takeshi for his misfortune. The accumulated hatred in Gecko manifests in every blow, determined to kill his brother as payback. Takeshi, despite being severely injured, rises with determination, realizing that there is no turning back. The fight reaches a critical point when Gecko reveals his intention to take Kurumi and turn her into a Ghost Trailer, unleashing his true power and conjuring demonic wings that allow him to move terrifying speed. With each strike, Takeshi grows weaker and weaker, until he finally falls unconscious. In that moment of desperation, Gecko attempts to take Kurumi away, but the girl, terrified yet brave, breaks free from his grasp and runs towards Takeshi. Reaching his unconscious body, Kurumi, with tears in her eyes, kisses him and uses her magic to transform into him, trying to deceive Gecko. However, Gecko, enraged by this tactic, brutally strikes Kurumi, rendering her unconscious as well and taking her with him. Beside the dying protagonist, Takao's item, which Takeshi had given to Kurumi before the battle, lay on the ground, a symbol of their connection. At that moment, Violet appears, observing Takeshi's body with an unreadable expression. Within Takeshi's subconscious, in a dream, he awakens upon hearing Tao's voice, who approaches him carrying an orb of light. Tao, with an expression of sadness and determination, hands the orb to Takeshi, telling him it's the most she can do for him. Upon touching the orb, Takeshi experiences a terrifying vision. He sees his brother attempting to kill their mother, filling him with deep despair. The sense of loss and terror intensifies as Tao disappears, leaving him alone with his fear. Desperate, Mui runs through the corridors, frantically searching for Takeshi. She finally comes across his fallen body in front of Violet. Seeing the scene, Mui realizes with horror that Violet is a traitor, and without hesitation, she prepares to confront her, determined to save Takeshi at all costs, even if it means risking her own life. Next, Violet summons one of her invocations, an imposing figure resembling a nun, but with a sinister aura and whip-like arms that move with terrifying speed. The creature lunges at Mui with supernatural agility, its presence shrouded in a dark veil that causes the temperature around it to drop several degrees. Seeing this, Mui steps back, her eyes reflecting a mix of fear and determination. With trembling but steady hands, she draws an enchanted pistol, a weapon she has perfected over time, and without hesitation begins firing. The bullets cut through the air with a deafening whiz, but the nun, with unnatural dexterity, dodges each one with fluid, almost choreographed movements. Every attempt by Mui is thwarted, and she soon realizes that Violet plans to use the distraction to escape with Takeshi. Urgency takes hold of her, and with a cry of frustration, she launches into a desperate sprint to reach them. However, the nun, moving like lightning, lashes out with one of its whips, which coils around Mui like a serpent, dragging her to the ground with a force that knocks the wind out of her. The cold, hard floor hits her body with brutality, but Mui, gasping from the pain, struggles to free herself from the whip that binds her with almost inhuman strength. The nun approaches, its eyes gleaming with dark malevolence, ready to deliver the final blow that will end Mui's life. Just as the situation seems hopeless, three figures emerge from the shadows of the corridor. They are mages, veteran students of the academy, who, without wasting a second, combine their powers into a devastating spell that disintegrates Violet's invocation in a blinding flash of light. The magical explosion shakes the air, and the creature's scream fades into a distant echo. The mages, not wasting any time, conjure a cyclone in the corridor, a whirlwind of wind and magic that pushes Violet back, forcing her to release Takeshi, who falls to the ground, inert but free. Mui, seeing her chance, leaps towards her friend, her heart in her throat, while Violet, realizing she has lost the advantage, dissolves into the shadows, disappearing without a trace. Takeshi begins to stir, letting out a groan of pain as he regains consciousness. His wounds are deep, and each breath seems to take a piece of life from him, but the relief of being safe gives him the strength to open his eyes. The three mages approach Mui, introducing themselves formally and revealing that they are fourth-year students at the academy, belonging to the illustrious Camelot community, one of the 7 great magical organizations respected and feared for their power. Each of them exudes a serene confidence, and their eyes shine with the determination of those who have seen many battles and survived to tell the tale. Just at that moment, Tsugumi appears, her tense expression relaxing upon seeing that her sister is safe. She hurries to greet the mages, and in the casual conversation that follows, it is revealed that Kurumi, the leader of the trio with hair as golden as the sun, was once Suganeshi's girlfriend, a fact that surprises Mui, though she hides it behind a polite smile. Our protagonist tries to stand, but his body, battered from the recent battle, refuses to obey. Every muscle seems to be screaming in protest, and the pain is so intense that he cannot even rise to his feet. The scene evokes the sensation of a first day at the gym, where every movement becomes torture. However, there is no time for lamentation, and the mages, seeing his condition, decide to take him to their community so that he can receive the medical attention he so desperately needs. Before leaving, Mui notices an object on the ground, an artifact that Kurumi dropped before she was kidnapped. The significance of the object weighs on her mind, but she remains silent, feeling that the time is not yet right to reveal her discovery. Several days later, Takeshi wakes up in a hospital room within the Camelot community. The atmosphere is serene, with sunlight filtering through the white curtains, and the silence is a welcome change after the chaos of battle. The medical center is located in the world of the living, a safe place far removed from the conflicts still raging in the magical realm. Mui is by his side, her eyes filled with concern and relief as she sees her friend finally awake. The conversation that follows between them is emotional, filled with gratitude and mutual promises of protection, until they are interrupted by Kazumi, who bursts into the room with a mix of anger and desperation. He reveals that his sister has been kidnapped by 2 men from the Wizard Brace Agency, an organization dedicated to protecting mages with exceptional abilities. Kazumi's fury and frustration are palpable as he recounts how he has unsuccessfully tried to threaten them into releasing his sister. Mui adds that even her own brother, a powerful mage, was unable to do anything about it, heightening the sense of helplessness that weighs on them all. Despite his weakness, Takeshi manages to calm his friend, reminding him that although the situation is grave, it's better that she is in a safe place, far from imminent danger. His words have a soothing effect, and Kazumi, though not entirely convinced, accepts that perhaps it is for the best, especially in contrast to Kurumi, who has fallen into enemy hands. Suganeshi then enters, an aura of seriousness surrounding him as he sits with the others to discuss their next move. It's clear that Takeshi is not yet in a condition to fight, and though his desire to rescue Kurumi is strong, the reality is that they have no idea where she could be. The frustration in the room is palpable, and Mui, feeling the weight of the truth she carries, remembers the artifact she has in her possession. However, she still says nothing, waiting for the right moment. That same night, Takeshi, unable to rest, leaves his room and wanders through the hospital premises. His steps lead him to a conversation between Tsugumi and Kurumi, where he discovers a crucial detail. The Camelot community only admits women, a strict policy that jeopardizes his stay there. Kurumi mentions that on orders from her superiors, Takeshi must leave as soon as possible. Desperation appears in her voice as Tsugumi tries to persuade her to let him stay a little longer, arguing that Takeshi could be in grave danger if he returns to Wizard Brace in his current state. Kurumi, showing a compassion that contrasts with her stern appearance, promises to try and convince her superiors to let them stay a bit longer. Takeshi, having heard everything, returns to his room with a heavy heart, feeling like a burden. However, upon returning, his spirits are lifted at the sight of Mui, who, true to her promise, has been by his side all this time, worrying about him. Meanwhile, in another corner of the world, Kazuma meets with the leaders of the Pendragon community, his return marking a turning point in the war. In a speech full of fervor, Kazuma inspires his followers to continue the fight, speaking of opening the Forbidden Gate, an act that will change the course of magical history. At the same time, Kippi, one of his most loyal servants, infiltrates the home of the great wise man, the wizard who conjured the spell preventing war in the world of the living. With terrifying efficiency, Kippi eliminates all the guards in his path, leaving a trail of death and destruction in his wake. Finally, he finds the elderly wizard, a man whose power is legendary but who at that moment is defenseless against Kippi's fury. With absolute coldness, Kippi kills him, disabling the spell and maintained the peace. Now, both worlds are on the brink of an unprecedented conflict, and Kazuma, of the smile that reflects his dark satisfaction, declares that the blood of the wizards will soon fill the streets of both worlds. The effect is immediate. The cities turn into battlefields with magical explosions and attacks that sow panic among ordinary citizens. Violence spreads like wildfire, and despair takes root in the hearts of those who once believed that peace was possible. Upon learning of what is happening, Takeshi feels a desperate urge to return home. Worry for his mother consumes him, especially as he remembers that his own brother had shown intentions of killing her. Despite Sugenoshi's objections, who fears for his safety, Kurumi, showing an unexpected side of her character, offers to accompany him. At Takeshi's house, the group meets his mother Yuko, who, surprised and distrustful, does not recognize any of them. The situation becomes even more tense when Kurumi, in an unexpected gesture, hands Yuko a letter signed by the leader of Camelot. The letter requests Yuko's help with Takeshi's magical training, and although at first she refuses, the presence of a ring inside the envelope changes her mind. With a mixture of resignation and determination, Yuko accepts, putting on the ring and sealing her fate. The training in Camelot is exhaustive. Takeshi and his mother train with an intensity that pushes the limits of body and mind. Yuko, showing a skill and knowledge she had kept hidden, guides her son with a firm hand, although her own endurance begins to falter. Takeshi, in a moment of rest, confesses to his mother that he does not know who is right in this war, but he is determined to do everything possible to save his friend. Yuko, with the gravity in her voice, warns him that to achieve this, he must be willing to take down some ghost trailers, a truth that weighs on him like a sentence. Days pass and exhaustion accumulates, until one day after an intense training session, Yuko collapses, unable to endure anymore. Kurumi, who has been observing closely, reveals that the ring Yuko is wearing, an ancient artifact, absorbs part of the user's life energy, weakening her body with every spell she casts. The weight of responsibility falls even more heavily on Takeshi, but fate seems to offer him one last chance. While chatting with Mui, who has been by his side every moment, the girl finally decides to give him the artifact she recovered from Kurumi. It is a teleporter, an object of immense power that will allow him to reach her directly. Mui confesses that she did not give it to him earlier due to the state he was in, fearing that Takeshi, in his desperation, would use it without considering the consequences. The words of gratitude that come from Takeshi's lips touch Mui deeply, who, with tears in her eyes, feels relieved to see that her friend is willing to be more cautious. Meanwhile, in an unknown location, Kurumi wakes up from a nightmare that left her trembling. Upon getting up, she realizes that she is still transformed into Takeshi, a revelation that fills her with confusion and fear as she tries to understand what is really happening. After waking up, Kurumi finds herself face-to-face with Geku, who has come to visit her. The surprise of seeing her visitor quickly turns into unease when Geku asks her to revert to her original appearance. Without knowing exactly how, Kurumi manages to fulfill the request, which pleases Geku. The young man, satisfied, remarks that this is how the girl he loves looks. This comment triggers a heated argument in which Kurumi, unable to hold back, expresses everything she thinks about this supposed love, along with her insatiable hunger for power and her visceral hatred towards Takeshi. Geku, visibly upset by Kurumi's harsh words, reacts with fury, using Tawa to destroy part of the room. Terrified and aware of the danger, Kurumi desperately tries to escape through the castle's facilities while Geku chases after her, mocking her attempts. Fortunately, Kurumi runs into Takao, a former ally of Wizard Brace who still remembers their past friendship, and seeing her in distress, decides to help her by hiding her in his room. It isn't long before Hotaru appears, joining the conversation. Kurumi, feeling that her only chance of survival is to escape from there, begs them for help. After a brief discussion, they both decide to support her, as they also harbor a deep contempt for Geku, who had gone so far as to usurp their position as Kippy's right hand. The group, determined to find a way out, ventures into the labyrinthine corridors of the castle. However, luck is not entirely on their side. During their journey, they encounter Geku once again, forcing Kurumi to hide with Hotaru. To avoid being discovered, she takes on Hotaru's appearance using an illusion spell. Pretending to be him, Kurumi continues her journey alongside Takao, but circumstances compel her to separate from her ally. Seizing the opportunity, she tries to find the exit on her own. Unfortunately, the spell fades over time, and Kurumi reverts to her original form at the least opportune moment. In her desperate escape, she enters a dark room, the door of which closes immediately behind her. From the shadows, Kazuma emerges, offering his hand and asking her to accompany him. The two disappear as they cross a portal that materializes before them. Meanwhile, Takeshi continues training with more intensity than ever, preparing for the challenges ahead. In a crucial moment, his mother, Yuko, teaches him a powerful enchantment that will allow him to increase the speed at which he generates his magic, knowledge that could change the course of his future confrontation. After an arduous training session, Takeshi, full of questions, finally decides to ask his mother why she never revealed to him that she was a mage. However, just as Yuko is about to share a crucial truth related to Geku's accident, the power of the ring she wears weakens her deeply, preventing her from continuing. Concerned about her health, Takeshi decides to let her rest, but the anxiety and confusion persist in his mind. With renewed determination, Takeshi mentally prepares himself to use the teleporter and head to the trailer's base, where he hopes to find Kurumi. However, before he can do so, Wui appears, informing him that she will accompany him on his dangerous mission. Not long after, Kazumi also joins the group, declaring that he will not let his best friend face such great risks alone. With his team assembled, Takeshi activates the artifact, and together, they teleport to the trailer's headquarters, determined to rescue Kurumi. Upon arrival, the first thing they see is Takao and Hotaru, who, upon noticing their presence, greet them with scorn, criticizing the foolishness of their actions. Without further ado, the two traitors prepare to fight. This confrontation gives Takeshi the opportunity to test his new moves against an experienced user of evasive magic, exchanging blows and spells in a battle that tests his skill. Meanwhile, his companions work to neutralize Hotaru, allowing Takeshi to focus on his duel with Takao. Mui, seeing the intensity of the fight, tries to support Takeshi with her spark, but Takao, with his skills, manages to block her interventions. Nevertheless, Takeshi, using his new enchantment, envelops his sword with an aura of magical energy, gaining the upper hand in the combat. In response, Takao has no choice but to unleash his true power, matching the protagonist's strength. The attacks continue until Takao summons a seemingly indestructible magical shield. At that critical moment, Wii springs into action, firing a powerful projectile that merges with Takeshi's magic, creating a combined attack that instantly destroys the shield. With their enemies defeated, Takeshi, still determined, questions the traitors about Kurumi's whereabouts, resolved to continue his search. Meanwhile, in a distant and hidden place, Kazuma meets with Kurumi, revealing to her a truth of utmost importance that could change the fate of everyone involved. In a scene fraught with tension, the protagonist returns home, desperately clinging to his last ray of hope. Haunted by a disturbing nightmare in which Geku takes his mother's life, Takeshi hurries, praying internally that his premonitions are wrong. However, upon arriving, his worst fear becomes reality. He witnesses his brother Geku, covered in blood, emerging from the house with a sinister expression. Takeshi's heart tears apart at the sight of his mother, Yuko, fallen and bloodied on the ground. Rage consumes him as his brother watches him cynically. But before he can unleash his fury, Geku, with a cold voice, stops him, confessing that he has not killed their mother, leaving Takeshi bewildered. The tension escalates as Geku prepares to fight, arrogantly displaying the transformation he has made to Tawa, adapting her to his twisted personality. Now Tawa has become a malevolent weapon, surrounded by a sinister aura, and her human form has been turned into a kind of zombie slave that Geku summons to attack Takeshi. Without warning, the young man is knocked to the ground by Tawa's brutal impact, and just as she is about to deliver a fatal blow, Geku makes her disappear, approaching Takeshi with an expression of disdain. At that moment, Geku reveals a truth that shakes the protagonist to his core. The car accident that marked their lives was not Takeshi's fault but their mother's, who had ordered Bishop, the leader of Camelot, to assassinate her own son. Takeshi, horrified and stunned, refuses to believe that his mother could have plotted something so atrocious. But Geku, with a malicious smile, shows him a disturbing memory. In it, Yuko, gravely injured and on the brink of death, experiences a nightmarish vision induced by Tawa in which her son Geku becomes Kazuma, a being of immense power and darkness. Terrified by the prophecy, Yuko devised a plan to kill her son and prevent the terrible fate from coming to pass. But when she saw her son injured, she couldn't summon the strength to finish the job herself. Takeshi's mind is in a whirlwind of confusion and pain. The information is too overwhelming, and he finds himself unable to trust his brother's venomous words. The disgust over Geku's actions, who has hurt their own mother, consumes him. Geku, seeing that Takeshi does not yield to his manipulation, becomes enraged and decides that the time has come to end it all. Thus, the brothers face each other in a final battle, channeling all their power through their swords. The duel is fierce, with swift and constant blows that take them soaring into the sky, where the true power of both is unleashed in its fullest expression. Takeshi's training finally pays off as he manages to match and even surpass Geku's speed. With his enhanced skills, he manages to wound his brother using his special vision and lightning-fast movements. But the fight is suddenly interrupted by the appearance of hundreds of mages from both Ghost Trailer and Wizard Brace, who plunge into a pitched battle, filling the sky with explosions and magical attacks. Amidst the chaos, Takeshi resumes his fierce duel against Geku, while his friends fight the Ghost Trailers, joining forces with the other mages. As the battle progresses, both brothers are visibly exhausted. Geku, desperate, tries to use words instead of his sword, confessing that he is lost and bewildered, not knowing what to do. His mother tried to kill him, and now he has nowhere to go. Geku's words spark a glimmer of hope in Takeshi. The protagonist, moved, confesses to his brother that he will always be willing to come back home with him, extending his hand in a gesture of forgiveness, while deactivating his special vision that allows him to detect lies. Geku, with a mix of disbelief and sadness, slowly approaches Takeshi to shake his hand. However, in an unexpected twist, Kurumi, who is flying nearby, senses the tension in the air and quickly moves towards Takeshi. Just as Geku takes his brother's hand, he calls him knave and with a lethal move, directs his sword towards the protagonist. In a heroic act, Kurumi steps between the brothers, taking the blow intended for Takeshi and losing consciousness for a few seconds. The shot paralyzes both brothers as Takeshi tries to keep Kurumi alive. At that critical moment, Mui appears to help, taking Takeshi's place and using her healing abilities to save Kurumi. Takeshi, free from his immediate concern, charges at Geku with uncontrollable fury, exchanging powerful blows until he finally brings his brother down, leaving him exhausted and defeated. Just when it seems that everything is over, Geku rises once more, and the two young men clash swords in a final effort, unleashing a monstrous amount of energy. Meanwhile, Kurumi, weakened but conscious, reveals a crucial truth to Mui, who cannot help but burst into tears upon hearing it. At the same time, Momoka, who was thought to be dead, appears on the scene, revealing that she has survived. Seeing that the brothers are on the verge of losing control, Momoka intervenes, creating a massive orb of darkness that transports everyone to a world in ruins. In a surprising twist, the narrative shifts to Kazuma, who is healing Yuko and having an enigmatic conversation with Violet. It is revealed that Yuko is Kazuma's mother, and with a smile on his face, Kazuma announces the beginning of his new world. The scene shifts once again, showing Takeshi awakening after Momoka's devastating attack. Disoriented, he discovers that he is at the academy, which seems intact as if nothing had happened. Confused and distressed, Takeshi wanders through the facilities, trying to understand what has happened. His bewilderment grows when he encounters his mother working as a teacher, who does not recognize him at all. As he analyzes the situation, Takeshi realizes that somehow he has traveled back in time, a theory confirmed when he sees the date on a flyer stuck to the wall. But what truly leaves him stunned is the appearance of a young Geku, accompanied by Momoka, Tsukiyomi, Omi, Kuma, and others. Geku looks directly at him and with an enigmatic smile, tells him that he has been waiting for him. Back in the present, Mui and Kurumi, lying on the ground, gaze at the giant crater left by Momoka's attack, their hearts filled with pain and despair. Thus concludes our anime, leaving viewers on the edge of their seats, eager to discover what the future, or the past, holds for our protagonists.